So we're here on Daf Chav Tes, and the Mishnah had established that on the 9th of Av, Nechresha Ha'ir, which means that after the Churban Bayis Sheni took place, the Goyim came in and they did a Harisha on Yerushalayim. And Yerushalayim was plowed through like a Sadeh Charusha. And this is based on a pasuk in Micha and Novi. It says, Tzion Sadeh Techorech. And once again, Chazal had a Kabbalah, as we saw before, that this event took place on that day that was designated for evil, and that's the 9th of Av. We saw that about Milkedah Beitar and about the Churban Bayis Sheni. Tanya, we learned in the Brisa, Kishacharash Turnarufis Harasha Es HaHeichal, when this person, he says in the footnote that after Titus in the second Bayis destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, then he left Yerushalayim to the hands of the Sar Tzava, of the head of the army. His name was Rufus. And in fact, his name is mentioned in Josephus. And later on, a few years later after the Churban, when Turnus Rufus saw that Bnei Yisrael were sort of getting back a little bit of their courage, and they were of the opinion that very quickly they would go back to where they were before. Then he decided at this point he's going to plow the entire city of Yerushalayim and the area of the Mikdash to show that this is irreversible, that the Malchus, the Roman kingship, has decided that the Jewish people would never be returned to their original state. And he began to attack the Beis HaNasir. And his decision to plow the city of Yerushalayim was on Tisha B'Av, on the day of the Churban HaBayis. And he plowed the entire city. Nigzera Gzera al Rabbi Gamliel HaZoken LaRiga. And the decree was that Rabbi Gamliel HaZoken would be murdered. Ba Adon Echad, one of the officers in the Roman kingship, came along. He stood in the Beis HaMedrash. He says, Bala Chotem Misbakesh, Bala Chotem Misbakesh. And the word Chotem here, which usually means a seal, let me just see what he says here. So the word Chotem as a seal is with a tuf. Here it's with a tes. And Chotem with a tes means a nose. Apparently he had a prominent nose. And he's wanted for execution. So this was an allusion to Rabbi Gamliel that he should be warned that he's going to be arrested and executed. So he said in an allusion so that they shouldn't recognize him, the Anshe HaMelech. Now, he has a note here in which he says that he could not warn Rabbi Gamliel openly because of the imperial agents. In other words, they wanted Rabbi Gamliel to be executed, and to warn him would be a violation. So he spoke of a man with a prominent nose, and Rabbi Gamliel understood that this was an allusion to himself. He was prominent, imposing appearance. It could be that this was a symbolic statement that he had a prominent nose. He was a great sage of the generation. Shoma Rabbi Gamliel, he understood that it was a reference to himself, Ozal Tosha Minayu. Tosha means he hid himself. Ozal Legabe Bitsina. That Sar, who had warned Rabbi Gamliel, went clandestinely to Rabbi Gamliel. V'yamalei imatzil nalach. If I save you from destruction, my sina li li'alma diasi, will you bring me along with you to the world to come? Amalei hein. Rabbi Gamliel said to this Sar, yes. Amalei, the Sar said, Ishtaba, I want a shvua. Ishtabali. He took a shvua. Solik le'igra, nafal umis. That officer climbed up to the roof, threw himself off the roof, and died. Ugamiri, and the Romans had a certain Masorah, so to speak, that the Chigazri Gzeirata umischad minayu mevatel Gzeirasa. That if they issue a decree to execute someone, and one of their Yoatzim, one of their councils, members of the council, would die, then they would cancel the Gzeira. She's back? All right. So I'm coming right away. This was like an omen. If one of their officers died, that their Gzeira was not the right Gzeira. So that's why that Sar killed himself, and he knew that as a result, they would cancel the Gzeira of the execution of Gamliel. Yosef Baskel v'Omra, and the Baskel came out and declared Adon Zeh Mizuman L'chaye Olam Haba. We learned in a Brisa, after the Churban Bayis Rishon is Kabtzu Kitos Shel Pirchei Kahuna. Groups of the young Kohanim, young men, gathered together. And they were holding on to the keys to the Heichal. It's all based on Yirmiyahu HaNavi. They climbed up to the roof. Amr Lefanam, they declared into the Rebbeinu Shalom. We did not merit to be the right Gizbarim, those who are in charge of protecting the Beis Hamikdash, and now you're destroying him. Yeah, you Maftechos Mesuras Lecha. We're returning the keys to you. Uzrakum Klape Mala. And they threw them towards the heavens. And if we didn't take good care of the Beis Hamikdash, we are returning the keys to you, God. And they threw him up to the heavens. V'yotza ke'ein pisas yad, sort of like a hand came out of the heavens, and kiblasam mehem, and it grabbed onto the keys. Heim kofzu v'naflu tocha ur, and they jumped into the flames, and they died. They perished. The Maharsha explains that the Medrash says that Yidei ha'oivim lo sholtu b'sharei heichal. It says Tovu ba'aretz shareah. So the sha'arim of the heichal were not destroyed, and therefore the Kohanim threw the keys to the maftechos, the keys of the sha'arim l'shamayim. And all this was so that the oivim symbolically should not be sholet on the Beis Hamikdash. Amru Kohanim Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch Hu until now, Shmiras Hamikdash Haisav Utel Salenu. We were the caretakers of the Beis Hamikdash Hoil. V'lo Ayinu Gizbarim Ne'emanim. Lo Ola B'Yodenu Limnoa Me'asitra Achra Likanes L'Mikdash Shemar Atal HaMikdash Mikan V'Elech V'Zarku HaMaftechos Lasos Dimyon B'Fal L'Divreim Kedeshis Kaimu. As the Ramban teaches us a principle In Parshas Lech Lecha, he says that in all Gzeras Elyon, we have to do a poel, a Maisa down here that will clinch and guarantee that the Gzera of HaKadosh Baruch Hu will come to pass. Almighty God agreed Shehu, that he himself with the capital H will Yishmar al Hamikdash. V'cheid yeh l'asid lavo, shenemar Zechariah Navi says, Vani eyela ne'um Hashem chomas H saviv. And the Gizbarim who are memunim, they're the caretakers, Zarku as hamaftechos, Kadesh lo yikham ha'oivim, v'yechalu hegdesh. Kofzu li'achim mikad li'esh, shelo yachrichum ha'oivim legalos mokom gnizas, moment hegdesh. And the question that the Marsha asks is, Ketzad huto lehem la'abed atzma l'das? What was the matir for suicide? And the Marsha seems to assume that they did it mirov sa'aram. There was not a calculated halachic decision. However, the Shvus Yaakov says, Osuzos mishum tshuva. That's not considered ma'abed atzma l'das. It's done for the purpose of tshuva. Aleim konen Yeshayahu Hanavi recites a kina on the loss of these Pirchei Kahuna, these young Kohanim. He laments their loss. Masa Gay Chizayon. Chizayon is a prophecy. And Masa Gay is a valley. Malacha Efo Kiolis Kulach Legagos. What happened to you now? Again, the valley of vision. That you have all ascended to the rooftops. Shuos Malaya Ir Homia Kirya Aliza Chalalayach Lo Chalali Cheret Below Mesei Milchama. In the past, you were filled with commotion, a joyous city. Your slain are not victims of the sword or casualties of war. Now, in Yeshayahu Hanavi, the valley of vision, which is called here by Yeshayahu, is called Masa Gei Chizayon, because it's a reference to Yerushalayim. All eyes are focused on Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is a valley subject of most prophetic visions. The verse is understood as alluding to the young Kohanim who were not slain in battle, but who ascended the temple roof and jumped into the flames and died. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Nemar, it says with regard to Almighty God, Mekarkar Kir V'Shoa El Hehar. He wails and laments concerning the mountain of Tzion. Iyom Mehuma Umevusa Umevucha Ladonei Elokim Svakos B'gei Chizoy Mekarkar Kir V'Shoa El Hehar. It's a day of upheaval, trampling, and confusion. From the God, the Lord of hosts, in the valley of vision, tearing down the wall, and the refugees shouting in flight to the mountain. So the Nevuah Yerushalayim is Gay, Emek, Kol Mistaklimbo is a vision. Everyone has a vision of this city. Now, why is it called a Gay if it's a mountain? Yerushalayim is on a mountain. And the answer is that the Oivim Ishpilu, they lowered it down, so to speak, in a figurative sense, because of the sins of Jerusalem. And now he wails over the fact that why is it the Kohanim are up on the gagos, on the rooftops? Hello. Es ir meles chuos kolos adam homia roshos haliza. It's a happy city, rejoicing city, and now the Kohanim climbed up to the roof of the Heichal because of the Oivim. They did not die at the sword of the enemies, but rather by jumping into the fire. Afakadosh Baruch Hu Nemar Mekarker Kir V'Shoel Ahar Miyalel Ha'odon Hashem U'Makonein V'Zoik B'Shvil Hartzion Sheshamem. And that leads us to the Mishnah, Mishanichnas Av Mate B'Simcha Rabbi Yehuda, Bereder Rab Shmuel Bar Shilat. Shilat is Rashi Tevet Shivisi Hashem L'nei Disavim Mishmei Derav. Kishem Shemishanichnas Av Mematim B'Simcha. Because of the evil that befell the Jewish people during the month of Av, we diminish our Simcha. So too, Kach Mishanichnas Adar Marvin B'Simcha. Adar is a happy tiding, a happy month. These are days of miracles for Israel, starting with Purim, of course, and leading to Pesach in the next month. And therefore, Marbim B'Simcha, we increase our Simcha. Hilkach, therefore, on the top of Chavtasim and Beis, Amar Papa, since we're Marbim B'Simcha during Adar, and we're Mamayit B'Simcha during Av, Hilkach, Bar Yisrael Dislay Dina B'Hadi Nachri, if a Jew has some sort of litigation with a guy, and it's going to take place in their courts, Lishtamit Minei, to try to avoid Av and the Riyah Mazli, because it has a bad mazel for Klal Yisrael, Limtzei Nafshe, and show up in court if he can, organize that way, Be'adar, during the month of Adar, Barye Mazolet. The mazel during Adar for Israel is very strong, and that's going to guarantee that they succeed in this judgment. So this is where we'll stop on the top of Chavtes Amid Beis.
Okay.